Welcome, everyone, to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Your Vocal Impulse, the 7-week journey to empower your unique voice and ignite the wisdom of your soul. I'm Lisa Bonise, and it's my honor to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Chloe Goodchild and address questions about her upcoming 7-week course, Your Vocal Impulse, which begins Monday, April 1st. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Chloe Goodchild is an international singer, educator, author, and founder of The Naked Voice, dedicated to the realization of compassionate communication in all realms of human life. Deafness in childhood catalyzed Chloe's deep encounter with her inner self and began a lifetime's experiential research into the voice as a catalyst for personal evolution and global transformation. Her memoir, The Naked Voice, Journey to the Spirit of Sound, tells the story of those formative early years. Chloe's recent book, The Naked Voice, Transform Your Life Through the Power of Sound, is an instructional guide that introduces the essential teachings of the naked voice. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Chloe, who's going to begin our call by leading us in a meditation. Welcome, Chloe. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Hello, dear Lisa. Yes, it's wonderful to be here. Really looking forward to people's questions.
Me too.
So I'd like to introduce a meditation, starting with my little bell here. Just enjoy breathing, closing your eyes, listening to this sound and following it right to the end. And just taking a beautiful big breath in and just really just letting go of everything and just breathing in and just bringing your awareness right down into your feet and just take your awareness on down into the earth. Just let the shoulders relax. Feel the strength of your spine. Feel and embody your awareness in your whole self, in your left and right legs, in your hips, your pelvis, in your belly, your instinctual center, in your heart center, the center of the chest. And then bringing your awareness on up into the middle of your head, the pineal gland, pineal chakra. Be aware of the space in front of you, to the right and the left of you, and behind you, and above you. Be aware of the universal energy that is at the absolute epicenter of your sound, of sound itself. And I'd like you just to, as you're breathing and sitting, wherever you are, to just bring your awareness right back to the beginning of your life. And just remembering yourself as a little child and remembering the sound of that little child, the voice of that one little child as it was learning to walk, to play, to fight, to struggle, to communicate itself, to be heard. And just take a big breath and invite all all the stories of that childhood time into the breath and just breathe it away. And then just bringing your awareness into your biography as an adolescent, the child at school, navigating the education system, navigating new relationships, love affairs, new questions about who you were and in what way that education system was really responding to your needs, the needs of your voice, the needs to really communicate who you were at that time. And to what degree your music education was really assisting you and empowering your voice at that time. And if it wasn't, what were the circumstances or the relationships that were really empowering your voice at that time? And then coming right forward into your present time. And just bring all the circumstances, the stories that have led you and your inquiring mind right here into this meeting together, this world meeting, exploring your vocal impulse, what your voice, your inner voice, your contemplative voice, your creative voice, and your compassionate voice, all the voices of your soul, what impulse has brought you here, and in what part is your voice to play in this conversation here together? I'm very privileged to be here listening and engaging with you, and really looking forward to hearing the sounds of your voices every bit as much as the questions. I think I would also just like to ask us to hold in our consciousness the possibility that all the narratives of our life have generated the extraordinarily courageous and powerful voice that you have become in this time in your life, regardless of what your sweet little ego would have you believe. So in the light of that, I return to you, Lisa, to lead us into the next stage.
All right. Thank you so much, Chloe. So we have the rest of our time together to dive into your questions for Chloe as we prepare for her upcoming course. Again, that's called Your Vocal Impulse. And it begins Monday, April 1st. And if you want to check out the website, sort of follow along with us and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit yourvocalimpulse.com to see the full description. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get started with the Q&A. If you have a question for Chloe, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to read it aloud. And in the meantime, we've already got a few questions waiting up for us here. So let's go ahead and take a question here from Addie. She says, how do I overcome the fear I feel when I start singing? How do I feel free singing in my authentic voice?
Oh, yeah, that's such an important one, isn't it? It's really important because the voice, your voice, is such a metaphor for how you communicate with everyone in your life. And so obviously the voice is the bridge into all your relationships. And so how can you, I think inherent within or implicit within your question is also a question about how can I really release the fear in expressing myself in my everyday life, perhaps as well, because the voice really is this, it is this connecting mechanism, isn't it? So the first thing I would advise and encourage, just from my own experience, is to welcome the fear, the so-called fear. See, the ego will have us believe these things that once we start expressing what our ego has told us is fear, very often we discover the absolute antidote of that. So, for example, fear, the sound of your fear, once you welcome it and go, what does that sound like? What does that actually sound like? And just let yourself breathe in, and just let free sound come out. Just let it come out. And the key is not to judge what is being heard. That's the real key, because then you can start to really welcome, as Rumi says, welcome, all the different states of soul, the malice, the greed, the sadness, the sorrow, the ecstasy, the joy. Open the door and welcome them all in, laughing. Now, that may sound like quite a tall order, but I really would invite you to do that. I think you'll be very surprised by how close to your sound is courage. Courage is the antidote of fear, if you like. And also fear sometimes is also a cover-up for awe, for wonder, okay? So just notice, if you allow yourself to really feel more wonder and awe in your life for what's in your life, whether it's a sunset, whether it's a relationship, whether it's just your sheer capacity to wake up in the morning and breathe, that is a wondrous miracle in itself. And just wonder is the other side of fear, if you like. And if you just start letting that wonder in, fear starts to disappear. We start to realize that it's just an energy that has not been taken care of, has not been listened to. And so try those few little practices out and see how it goes.
Okay, thank you for that. Got plenty more wonderful questions lined up here. We've got one from Helen who says, what about people approaching their 80s, like me, who get a smaller voice as time goes on?
Oh, I love that smaller voice. Oh, I always remember when I was much younger myself. We're not that far apart from each other. And first of all, just to say that actually age has very little to do with the voice. In wisdom cultures, in traditional cultures, the older you become, the wiser the voice becomes. And so just allow for that possibility that actually this smaller voice of yours that you're describing, sometimes the smaller it becomes, like the still small voice, or the inner voice of your authentic being, is actually way more powerful than any amount of strident, loud-mouthed singing. I always remember when I was recording as a younger woman, that I'd be recording and I'd be really identified with this really strong, voice, and I'd be very deeply impressed and inspired by myself until I think it was a very close, dear friend actually said to me, do you always have to sound so strident? And it was really that statement and that question that really helped me just to relax and to enjoy just receiving the sound exactly as it is. And not only the sound, however big or small, but most important, the silence that follows it. That's going to be a very important part of our journey, as it has been such a teacher for me, silence and the language of silence. And that will be there in one of the modules, particularly where we're going to be exploring the power of silence, the presence of silence before the sound comes, and then after the sound leaves. And then with that, the whole question, who is it that is singing? Who is it that is singing? So this exploration is not so much about how interesting and fascinating can my voice become, as in, our attachment to our personality voices, for example, but much more Is it a meditative journey, which is really deepening our whole journey with our voices, whether we've been practicing for a very long time or whether we're just starting out to really explore the voice as a vehicle for spirit, and most important, for non-dual communication. And we'll find out more about what that means. So that's to say, communicating from a place of stillness, quietness, presence, authenticity, and receiving. So we often think of the voice as something we have to give out and impress someone with. But this is much more about receiving the sound and really learning from the sound itself, what it has to tell us in all its colors, in all its emotional moods, without judging it. And we find that when we start really befriending our voice, it starts its own healing medicine on us. It starts to reveal its own magical mystery healing medicine. And that medicine comes with awareness, deep listening awareness.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you, Helen, for that question, and Chloe for that beautiful response. If you're just joining us, we're here with Chloe Goodchild, learning about her upcoming course, Your Vocal Impulse, which begins Monday, April 1st. And you can log on to yourvocalimpulse.com for all the details and to register. You can check out what the modules are and what you'll be learning every week as we go along. So we've got plenty more questions here waiting for us. Let's go ahead and take a question here from Molly. Molly says, when I was younger, someone told me I sounded like a wounded dog when I sang, so I shut down and now cannot sing. Can your course help me to open back up?
Well, do you know what? I think you've probably answered your own question by showing up. All you have to do is show up, and then we will see what we will see. Basically, what you will discover is the extraordinary capacity that you have to embrace all the voices of your childhood, all the voices. You know, we all have these just unbelievable stories of how someone told us how terrible the voice was. And why is it, I ask myself, why is it that we tend to focus on all that? Maybe it might just be one negative story that somebody told us about our voice and not remember the hundreds of times that somebody would have praised you. I would ask you to maybe match your question and with that particular narrative with a narrative about when you actually experienced your voice as a very powerful force. It might have been at home in your family. It might have been with friends. It might have been in public somewhere. And just to allow the positive narratives to really balance, with these more negative stories. But also just to come back to the wounded dog, that wounded dog has some very interesting music in there. And I would immediately I can't wait to hear what that sound is. As soon as we start to listen to these sounds, we find out just how real they are. And very often we find that the kind of really hard time we've given ourselves, putting our voices down and so on, we realize that actually this kind of, this programming or wiring that we've had to really downscale our voices comes from a culture. It comes from the evolution of a culture in our society, if you like, which has given so much attention to this right-wrong game, this right-wrong, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong kind of idea, or I'm better than you, or you're worse than me, or you're the wounded dog and I'm the beautiful princess, or, and I think we just have, at this very moment in time, and I think this is where our voice is very important, we've got to really explore how we can really forgive the unconsciousness of the past, really start to explore how our voices can help us not only to forgive, but in that forgiving to heal these old negative narratives. And again, it's in that healing, it's in that being present to the old story that we start to hear another. We start to become more aware of ourselves as a voice, and as the sound of consciousness itself starts to reveal itself as we're listening. And that then starts to open the door on the voice of your soul. And the voice of your soul is here for its own joy. It's just here for its own joy. And it's that joy that your vocal impulse is really interested in too.
Right. Thank you for that. Well, let's go to a question here from Terry, who says, how do you best express or heal a harsher, deeper voice that's been altered through long-term smoking? I quit 12 years ago, but the long-term effects are deeply humbling.
Bless you. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, we all have addictions are a big deal, at the time. But congratulations for stopping smoking and for demonstrating that you have the intention and the determination to be able to stop smoking. And not only that, that journey has, for one reason or another, brought you into this conversation. So I'm really excited that you're here and that you're really investigating. My sense is that you probably have a lot to teach about this. Intention and determination are an essential ingredient of this work. So thanks for bringing that right into this Q&A session together. So yes, your voice. If you think about voices, Bob Dylan, who else? Leonard Cohen. I don't know how you feel about these singers, but let me see who else. Buffy St. Marie. There are all kinds of smoky voices that are incredibly compelling. And when I actually ask myself, or you might want to ask yourself, what is it and why is it that voices, even though they might sound smoky or scritchy or scratchy or whatever, are nevertheless incredibly inspiring? Think about that. I'd like you to really consider that, reflect on that, so that you start to befriend this voice of yours as it is. As it is. Leonard Cohen wasn't trying to be an opera singer. He wasn't trying to be anything, as far as I could tell. He was communicating. He was communicating a message. And that message was like really, really strong. That message was more powerful than whether he had, the most professional sounding, shiny voice. So just again, get used to enjoying being with your voice, listening to it exactly as it is. And then we can then start exploring what your soul actually wants to communicate through this unique voice of yours. I think we just lost a little bit of time there, but I'm very excited to know that we have people who have that kind of determination to be here. Brilliant.
All right. Well, thank you. Got a question here from Paulette, who says, I'm a singer and I feel very happy and grateful for my voice. But much of the promotional material regarding the class seems to be oriented toward people who've had bad experiences around judgment around their voice. Can you say if this is a large part of the work of the course, learning to appreciate the voice?
Well, that's fabulous that you feel really good about your voice. So everybody moves absolutely with this work according to the leadings of in other words, your voice. So the voice of your soul and the impulse, your vocal impulse for being here and for wanting to express yourself in new ways. And possibly to explore your voice as a spiritual practice, to explore it more as a vehicle for non-dual communication and so on. Just really allow yourself to follow your own imperative or your own enthusiasm for being here, because that is what will lead you. And you'll also find that we have these triad exercises which take place after the main 90-minute session. And if you want to get involved in those sessions, they're a lot of fun, because that's where you can really start to explore a lot of the practices and so on that have been going on in the main sessions. So absolutely, the shadow voice and the voices of our forgotten past, or the voices that really are seeking to be healed, is something that every single human being really has to face at some point. And it may be that you are very, very blessed to be at a stage in your life now where you're really just wanting to explore where your voice can go next, and in what way your voice as a vehicle for spirit can be used in your life now, and how you can explore that in your life as well. So does this answer your question?
Well, we'll ask that person to follow up if there's anything further to ask. That was Paulette, I believe. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this question is from Leah, and this is, I believe, a follow-up to the conversation that you had with Stephen Dinan, where you told people to sing their first name. So Leah says, I've changed my first name. In singing my name, do I start using my birth name or my current name?
Aha. Well, no one but you can answer that question. So what you have to do is just to be very quiet inside yourself and just ask yourself, which name am I in truth most at home with? And it's very interesting, because very often people do actually return to a name that they were given, that they put aside. Or they find another name coming forward that actually expresses the sound of their soul. So the question is, which of these names really connect you most spontaneously, most naturally, most effortlessly with your soul and with your soul sound, with your impulse for being here? And then I think you'll just find, is that one. And try not to get too meaningful about it, because you may find you want to experiment. You can start with one, and you'll soon know, as soon as sound is pouring out of the body, out of your mouth, it starts to affect your expression. It starts to affect how you feel. And that feeling will give you very, very strong leadings as to which is the most authentic way to express yourself and which is the most authentic direction to go next. Okay. So just follow, listen, and just really deeply listen. Do not be surprised if in your response that you are suddenly wanting to explore with a name that you haven't used for a long time. And also do not be surprised if there's a kind of a really quite an emotional response to that happening. Let those emotions really enter the sound of your unique voice. And just that then gives you a lot of information about your vocal impulse and your impulse to be exploring your voice and this whole journey together.
Okay, thank you. And Paulette did follow up. She says that you did answer her question about what's offered to people who are already feeling happy and blessed with their voice. So there you go. Right.
Pretty good.
Let's go to a question here from Ruth, who says, sound is vibration in the life sphere that directly affects the cells, the organs, and can heal and transform. The air and etheric between us is the carrier when we sing and engage. Electronic transmission is changing something essential in the life force stream. How will your course be working with this?
Exactly as you've just described it. That was beautifully described, by the way. That was absolutely beautiful. Because as you say, the entire light bulb of the brain goes on when we start sounding authentically. The entire energy field of the body lights up as well. And we become aware not only of ourselves as a physical reality, as a vital physical body, but we become aware of the whole etheric field. I don't know whether you're familiar with the work of the great classical Indian musician Hazrat Inayat Khan, who was a Sufi. And he had some beautiful things to say about the nature of sound. That ether is the music of ether, is the music that the human body is the instrument for. In other words, we don't need an external musical instrument, whether it's a wind instrument or a stringed instrument or a percussive instrument or brass instrument. The human body itself is the instrument for the revelation and the expression of our etheric nature. And it's our etheric nature that is so inaudible, invisible to all of us that we have to become, the more we sing true and authentic and the more we express our authentic reason for being here, the more our awareness of the broader field of our existence starts to open up. And with that expanding awareness of our nature as being not just the physical body, not just the auric field of energy, but the self with a big S, that is the cosmos. And that we can really begin to start understanding the absolute majesty and sovereignty of the soul that is yours this lifetime. So thank you for asking that question. Beautiful articulation. Thank you.
Beautiful response. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for that. We've got a question here from Fonz. And the question is, growing up, I had to mostly keep my mouth shut, especially in boarding school where I spent my youth from age 7 to 16. And that, of course, influenced my communication later on, especially where I had to stand for my personal opinion. What would you recommend to bring my way of expressing myself in a clear way?
Bless you. I think you're already doing it. I think it's happening. This is it. This is absolutely it. I mean, to have the courage and to actually show up in this question and answer and to ask that question, to be just so completely upfront about your story. All these things are indicators of just how determined, how ready you are to really express your truth. And this is going to involve a combination of discernment. So that means really being discerning about the way you listen to yourself, and discerning around how you allow yourself to absolutely give focus to what matters in your sound, to what really matters, which is the truth of your sound, its true resonance. In that resonance is your absolute purpose for being here as well. And so your voice is an incredible messenger. It's a real messenger from your soul. And sometimes part of that journey, as we start really getting the significance of our voices at this time, is that we have to take a look back at the voices of our childhood, to actually understand and to appreciate just how even the most horrendous, the most negative, the most appalling, the most abusive of stories, and our capacity to ride, to navigate them, to come through, to be here now, to be expressing ourselves, to be still called to express our truth, is an indication that those stories actually, in some strange way, obstructions and all, actually gave you the nous, the real spirit that is here right now to express itself in ways. I often say this, I cannot stop saying it. It's expressing yourself in ways you never imagined yourself capable of. And that's because the singing bypasses the rational mind. It takes us beyond the rational mind, beyond all the sort of, all those left brain stories, and it starts to really show us a world and a whole new story, a new human story that is yours to embody, and that is going to, your voice is the great empowerment tool for this.
Nice, thank you. All right. Let's go to a question here from Linda, who wants to know, can we use this work to help with anxiety?
Oh, no, sorry. No, you come to the wrong place. No, I'm joking. Anxiety is a terrific trigger, because if you actually were to ask your voice, what does anxiety sound like? Just try that out. And just have a go. Just spend 5 minutes just sounding non-verbally what anxiety sounds like. Okay. And I think you'll be very surprised to find that there's some kind of incredible energy in there that you couldn't possibly you couldn't really just hold it within the tight shoe of anxiety. You'll find that there's an energy in every single emotion that has the power to really release new melody lines in the soul that, it's like, where does this come from? Well, it certainly comes from beyond the rational mind. It comes from a deepening connection with the center of our chest and with the heart center and with our longing. And that longing and the music of longing and the language of longing is something that we have many musical practices for, and templates and ways of just really honing what this anxiety might actually be concealing. Because very often it's concealing a deeper sound of awareness. And it's that deeper sound that anxiety can be the gateway into. So it's like, honor absolutely every emotion that shows up. Each one carries and reveals and expresses an emotion, which then, the more we listen without judging to it, the more that emotion, that surface emotion, takes us down beneath the personality, beneath our identification with the right wrong, beneath our identification with, the old story, the old narrative voice, right? It takes us beneath that down into the positive, conscious, compassionate feelings that your voice is also waiting to express. It's really waiting to express. And it's your longing that sometimes the anxiety is a kind of flagship for, that longing. And there are, if you think of the whole kind of history of songs, soul songs, so much of them, and the beauty of those songs comes from very deep longing. So that longing is really an important gateway into the voice of your soul as well.
Beautifully put. Thank you for that. Looking at the clock, we have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I want to give a few details about the course. People are asking for those, so I'll go ahead and fill those responses in. Once again, it's called Your Vocal Impulse. And this is going to be a really powerful 7-week journey with Chloe's expert guidance where you'll befriend difficult emotions, release blocked energy, and heal old narratives to free your authentic self through the healing sound of your own voice. And the 7-week course takes place on Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific, starting Monday, April 1st. And if for any reason you can't join us live, that's fine. You will not miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving a full 2 weeks until April 15th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Your Vocal Impulse bonus collection. First, you'll receive a PDF book chapter from Chloe Goodchild entitled 7 Sounds of Love. Then you'll get an audio album from Chloe called Sound Awareness, an Everyday Singing Practice. Next, you'll receive an audio recording from the Thriving in Your Third Act Summit of 2017 entitled Liberate Your Authentic Voice, Discover the Sound of Your Soul. Also, you get an audio recording called The Heart's Voice. And when you register by tonight, Monday, March 25th, by midnight Pacific, you receive an extra bonus as an extra gift, and that is an audio meditation from Chloe Goodchild entitled Eternal Sea, Music for Meditation, Relaxation, and Vocal Improvisation. So before we get back into questions, let me ask you, Chloe, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, thank you, Lisa, for just really mentioning those backup practices, because what I'm most looking forward to is really developing this and expanding this community of listening and vocal expression and vocal consciousness, learning how we can become more conscious with our voices and how that impulse to really express your truth is more imperative now than it has ever been, I would say. Witness what's going on in the world. And so to actually really harness and to welcome and to express your truth in your life is the greatest gift we could be giving the evolution of humanity right now. Let's be really clear about that. And so I'm really looking forward to developing a very deep journey which focuses on every bit as much as the process of the journey, every bit as much as the content of the practices. That process, do let us not underestimate just how important that process is. And that will be that's what I'm looking forward to more than anything. It's just hearing you hear yourselves as you should be heard and as you must be heard, consciously, compassionately, in ways that we just are going to give absolute voice to as quickly as possible. So let's get going. Let's really get going. Looking forward.
All right. Beautiful. Thanks. We've got an anonymous question here. It says, I've sometimes been told that when I sing, my voice has gone a bit flat. Does that just mean I need training, or is there something I'm being told by my voice?
Well, there's a question for yourself. It's very important to ask these questions of oneself. Sometimes school teachers have given us the idea that we weren't singing in tune. And that's very often because they gave us a piece of music to learn or to sing in the choir. And it was just a different vocal range to the one that we knew. And so we, at some level, consciously or semi-consciously, or even unconsciously, we kind of gave ourselves this idea that we couldn't sing in tune. So I would ask you to really start listening to your voice and start enjoying the resonance of it, the color of it, the way it likes to express itself, and also breathe more deeply. Enjoy breathing in and breathing out, giving the sound away more, and receiving more life into your sound. And I think you'll find that the more you do this and the more you give your voice back to yourself again, that you will actually, that kind of flat, sharp conversation will ever so graciously disappear.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here from Calliope, who says, I'm wondering if this work can be easily practiced with people of different nations and different languages. I've realized that the articulation of the singing sound is different in different languages. And then, as you tell us, there will be mantras deriving from the Indian tradition, etc. So can the exercises be practiced the same as well in every language?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I really like to encourage different languages. I've always found that so fascinating myself, is actually just going and sinking myself into cultures in Africa, in India, in Native American cultures up in northern Montana, and so on. And it's always, and obviously across Europe and so on. And I love that. The more voices, the better. I think that is actually one of the most powerful impacts of us working together like this online, because we do have so many people coming in who are representing and communicating from different language forms. And that really enriches the whole field. I think that's what you'll find. The actual practices, the 7 sounds of love, the mantras and so on, much of that language is rooted in ancient sound that it was once, they say, plucked from the sky. They are root sounds that are applicable in every language. And so there's a lot of focus on vowel sounds, and on really encouraging you to express non-verbally as well, because the soul actually is sometimes much more accessible when we take the words away. So you'll find that that is a very rich experience as well. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. You've sort of touched on this a little, but Lilo's question takes it into a little bit of a different direction. It says, I was a singer many years ago, but today my upper body is very contracted and I'm suffering from chronic pain for about 10 years. I believe that when I grew up, I was not allowed to feel, think, or speak my truth, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you for sharing your story too. So what you're really pointing us to is, what is this voice, and where does it come from? I think I would start to really explore your sound in this way. In other words, that as important as our body is, that there also is a way of connecting with ourselves that is not solely identified with ourselves as a body, right? So I think we would move we would listen very closely to the voice as it expresses itself now in the upper half of the body, and how that differs from the lower half. So we've got there a relationship that is evolving between the instinctual belly, if you like, the heart center, and that openness, as we know with people that do have issues with physical contraction and so on, that openness, when it's felt in the heart center, can just be felt silently. It doesn't even need to express itself on the outside. So what I would invite you to do is to start really listening to who is expressing herself, who is here, who is listening, and to start very non-judgmentally, really exploring what is the sound of the chest right now, exactly as it is, and just be present to it as it is. And that capacity to witness and to observe our sound without criticism, without judgment, is a very liberating, in fact, the most liberating aspect of the work, in fact, because we start to realize that this voice is not just a physical apparatus that is trapped in the body somewhere. It is, in fact, it's a universal phenomenon. It's a symphony of consciousness. Sound is the ground of all consciousness. And that really is the ground of this work, is our becoming aware of that. In our Western education, we're taught very much about sound as a technical thing, as a performative thing, and it's something that we have to impress people with. And it's very much performer versus audience. We have to entertain and all of that. But in this case, we're just going to start with deep, deep listening to who is singing, to who is sounding, to who is here, and that simple non-judgmental inquiry itself starts to open up the voice like a flower. It starts to understand, and then the body, and then the cells in the body start to realize, hang on a minute, I'm listening to myself in ways I hadn't before. I think I'll just breathe a little deeper. That's what's, and then it's basically an organic journey. And we just start from where we are. Where else can we start from? So thank you for asking your question. And it'll be a privilege to work with you and to explore this unique journey. Each of us, it's so unique.
All right. Thank you so much. We've got a question here from Christine, who says, when I'm out in nature, I feel that I sing with my soul in a spontaneous way, but in other circumstances, like in public, everything else takes over. Will this course take me into a place where I can do this in every situation?
Oh, yes. Yes is the absolute answer to that. Absolutely yes. And why do I say yes? Because if you know what the deepest singing is, in other words, when you're in nature and you just feel the music of the trees, of the flowers, of the rivers, the mountains, the countryside, what is it about the presence of that place that enables you to sing completely freely? And it's the awareness, if you like, of yourself as interconnected with all things. Yes? So there's nothing in the way. When we then move back into urban culture, or we move back into the social field, there's a kind of contraction can happen, because in that conditioned upbringing that happens in there, we have been taught, to express ourselves in a certain way, or we've got to express ourselves to, please somebody else. So suddenly that kind of completely unjudgmental interconnectedness of all things disappears. So what we're doing here is training ourselves as human beings through our voice to become as nature again, to remember ourselves as interconnected beings. On this planet, absolutely all and everyone welcome. All and everyone actually here to share the utter unique beauty of every single voice and every single soul and every single culture on this planet. So you, in learning how to do that with this interconnected field here, will be restoring nature back into the human condition, our true nature, which is a direct connection with our innate oneness, our innate unicity as human beings. No separateness anymore.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's try to squeeze in one last question here. This is from Lisa, who says, Will the voice, toning, and humming as a healing practice for self, others, and the planet be explored in this course?
If that's what you want, that's what will happen. You see, that's why I've been very clear that this particular class, this time, I want it to be much more interactive in the sense of you will be bringing your own life experience to this, and that life experience will be evolving the whole course of our work together in this, what I call a singing field. It's like a global singing field that we're creating. And thanks to Shift and other online facilities, we are able as human beings now to express and to share our voices, and also to remember ourselves, to retrain ourselves in this way. So that humming is, I wonder if you've read the work of Jonathan Goldman, who wrote a great book on the humming effect. It's possible you might have read that book. It's a fantastic book on the power of humming. So absolutely, yes, the hum is absolutely at the ground of this. You're taking us, in your question, you're bringing us back to that unchanging note as well, to that drone that exists right at the center of your awareness. It's that awareness of that unchanging note that is the ground of our being, if you like. And so humming, also something very interesting happens with humming. So, for example, when you sound om, you bring the lips together, just not too tightly, but you just relax them together. And as you do that, you get this lovely humming sensation right there. And as I understand it, what happens is that very sound right there triggers meridian points on the upper and lower lips and sends messages right out all around the body and triggers all the nadis, all the light networks, and the whole deal. So humming, yes to humming. Yes to humming.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, this has just been a wonderful hour as usual, Chloe. I want to thank our viewers for joining us today and for all of your questions. Well, once again, Your Vocal Impulse starts Monday, April 1st. And again, you can visit yourvocalimpulse.com to learn more and to register. So before we go, Chloe, do you have any final words for our viewers?
There is a place I know, only I can go, and no one else can go there for me. Yes, no one else can go there for you. So join us and find your voice. Your impulse will be leading you where your soul only knows. I'll meet you there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the quality of your listening. Thank you for your courage to find and act on your own vocal impulse. Thank you, Lisa, too.
All right. Wow, beautiful. Thank you again, Chloe. It's been such a pleasure being with you today. And again, I want to thank everyone who joined us. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.